In this video, we're going to go ahead and style the loading screen. Now that loading screen shows up for a very small fraction of a second, and if you're on a slower connection, it might show up for a bit longer. All we're going to do is show our GIF, the spinning image, instead. Now to actually get that done, we're going to close down some of the currently open files, like our two component files and the list styles file. And what we're going to do is start by opening up app.js. Now app.js is where we currently have everything. This is where we have our little loading message. And to make things easier to work with for the moment, we're going to comment out all of this stuff. So we're going to show the loading screen and then we're never going to actually get rid of it. That's going to make it just a little easier to actually target with styles. You won't have to manually refresh the page just to see things. So right here, we do have the loading screen showing up. And what we're going to do is break this out into a separate component. This separate component for the moment can just have the exact same message in place. Let's go ahead and take the paragraph, remove it. We'll add an instance of a component, something along the lines of loading page. Now we just need to actually import it from this file and most importantly, create the component itself. So up above, I will add an import. I'll add that right here, import. I'm going to import loading page from a file that currently does not exist, // We'll go into the component directory and we'll call this one loadingpage.js. So this file is good to go, but we do still need to create the component file. Over inside of the components folder, let's add this one, the final component we're going to need, loadingpage.js. And all we're going to do is export a stateless functional component by default. I'll import React from React. I will export by default a function. Now we could define the function first, giving us access to the name in the React developer tools, which is exactly what I will do. Const loading page equals. I will then set up an arrow function that implicitly returns some JSX, and down below, I will export by default that arrow function, loading page. Now the JSX for this one can just be a div, and in the div, we can just put another message, loading, for example. Let's go ahead and save the loading page component file and app.js and see what happens when the browser does refresh. We should still see our message showing up, this time without the ... dots. From here, all we really need to do is swap out the text for an image tag. We're going to set the source for the image, and we're going to be using the GIF that we already added into the images directory, / the root of the web server. We have images. In there, we have our loader. So we have the loader.gif file. I'm going to go ahead and save loading page. This should show the image and we should see it spinning and spinning. Over here, we are getting just that, which is a great first step. Now let's go ahead and center it and resize it. I'm going to add a few classes on to do just that. Class name for the root div. We can use something like loader, and then we can also add a class name for the image. And for the image, I will use an element in loader, so loader __ whatever, something like image would get the job done. And then we can just target both of these, adding a few styles into the mix. I'm going to, down below, add one more file into the components directory, _loader.scss. Before I add anything to it, I am going to import it by duplicating the last line and swapping out list for loader. Then we can go ahead and actually target those two things. So first up, I am going to target loader. Second up, I am going to target loader __ image. So let's start up above. What we're going to do here is try to center the image in the screen. First up, we are going to go ahead and set the height equal to 100% of the browser height, 100 VH, and we'll set the width equal to 100 VW, just like we did for the login page. Then we're going to use Flexbox display flex to center things. So I'll set display flex. I'll use align items to center it, and justify content to center it the other way. Awesome. Now we can actually save the loader partial and we should see the image disappear because it should be behind the editor. Right here, we have the image showing up. It is now spinning in the center of the screen. And all I'm going to do is just change the image size. I'm going to use 6 rem for the height and the width. So 6 rem. and a width value of 6 rem. This is just going to be something a little smaller and a little more reasonable. And once the browser does refresh, we should see that smaller size showing up. Right here, we do have that in place. And this is what we're going to stick with for the loading screen. So now we can go ahead and actually take app.js and we can uncomment all of the stuff we had down below. I'm going to save app.js. This should start the loader, but then switch over to the real app. Over here, we see the loader did show up. The app then showed up. So everything is working really, really well. Since we have made a ton of changes to the rendering of our components, both the order, exactly what they render, and their classes, what we need to do is rerun our test suite because a lot of our snapshot tests are going to be failing, which is perfectly okay and expected. If we do switch over to the terminal, we can shut down the dev server for the first time in a while, and we can use yarn test. I am going to toss on the watch argument. This is going to run through the test suite, and we're going to get hit with a whole lot of red. But as I just mentioned, almost all of these should be snapshot tests. So right here, we see we have 15 snapshot tests that failed in 9 test suites. Down below, we have 15 failing tests in 9 test suites. So if we scroll up, what do we have? We just have a bunch of snapshots that are now out of date because we've changed the structure. Totally expected. The whole point of snapshot testing is to be able to catch these changes. In our case, this is stuff we do want to change, so I can hit U, which is going to update these snapshots. This time around, it should run through the entire suite again, and everything should be passing. So as long as we do get to a passing test suite after we choose to update the snapshots, we're good to go. No need to worry about broken snapshots. Now, I would like you to take a quick moment to add a test file for loading page and put a snapshot test in there. Nothing crazy, just shallow render the component, add a single test case in, take a snapshot, and then make sure the test case passes. Take some time to knock this one out, pause the video, and when you're done, click play. All right, how'd that one go? Let's kick things off by creating a new test case. I'm going to add that down below inside of the tests directory in components, new file. That is going to be loading page.test.js, allowing us to keep track of changes to this component over time. Setting up the snapshot test takes almost no time at all, and once it is set up, it is going to make sure that things don't actually break. All we need from here are just 3 things: React, our shallow renderer, and the component we're trying to render. Import React from React. I'm going to import the named export shallow from Enzyme, and finally, the component we're looking to test. I'm going to import. Remember, this is the default export, so we can call it right here something like loading page from the path to that file. Out of the tests components directory, out of the tests directory, into source components. Inside of there, we have the file loading page.js. Now all we have to do is to add a single test case. Test should correctly render loading page or something along those lines. We're going to add the arrow function, and this is not an asynchronous test. So there is no need for anything fancy like spies, defining done, or anything like that. All we have to do is render it. Const wrapper equals. I am going to shallow render some JSX. I'm just going to make an instance of loading page. Then I am going to go ahead and create the snapshot. So expect wrapper, and then we're going to use to match snapshot. Awesome. Now that we have the snapshot test in place, we can save the file. The test suite should restart, and we should see a message that lets us know that a new snapshot test was added. As long as we are seeing that, we're good to go, and that is exactly what we're getting. We have one new snapshot written, and everything is now being tracked. So with this in place, we are all done with the loading page. There are just a few more things left to do. We have a few edge cases for mobile. There are a few things I want to talk about with older browsers. We're going to get to all of that in the next several videos, so let's continue on in the next one.